So my name's Vince Quiles. I've been working at Home Depot for 5.5 years, and I guess you can consider me the lead organizer on this union drive for Home Depot.
Do you want to go into the motives and the inspirations for the union drive?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, one thing we kind of commiserate at in my job is the fact that like it's more so that the pandemic kind of highlighted issues. A lot of these things were kind of going on before, but right, like sometimes it just takes for stuff to get like really, really bad before you can kind of see like, oh wait, like the way this functions as a system is just not conducive to success in certain metrics. And particularly the metrics we were concerned about was, some of the more like obvious stuff, like yeah, like pay, work circumstances, but there's a lot of underlying stuff that comes with that too. People's mental health, their emotional health. There's a lot of toll taken in that regard as well, and it's just like it's one of those you reflect on it, and again you look at what you go through and what you're kind of conditioned to accept, and it's like, hey, like this isn't really right. Like take for instance when I first started there, I used to work on what they call the breakdown crew, which is just unloading box trucks and stuff. And like say for instance you take like the middle of July, you got a really hot day, that truck shows up at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then it's sitting there all day in the sun, a metal box, just accumulating heat. And I would come in with my partner, and we would go hop in that truck, and we'd be in there for about an hour and a half. And that sucker could get up to like 120, 130 degrees sometimes. It's like super, super hot. And you're again like you're going through it right, and the mentality is just like, oh, just truck through it. Work is work. But and you see stuff like that where it's like, yo, like you're literally working in a sauna. There's no like really good like air circulation, and I mean this is something that you see going not even just at Home Depot, like right, like also with UPS, with Amazon drivers, like that stuff is dangerous. But you're just kind of conditioned to accept it, and it's all like it's just what it is. It comes with the territory. Um, you would see things like people just working multiple departments and not getting compensated for that in any way, shape, or form. And you even see like, right, like for instance, at the management level, I remember there was a store not too far from where we're at, Upper Darby. They had like four managers quit in one day. Like, what? Three assistant managers and then what they call a customer experience manager. Like so clearly there's an issue, not even just at the level that like we're at in terms of in the store hourly associates, but even for like their management. And it's like, like we're finding ourselves in a position where there's a lot of trouble in terms of like, right, like attracting people into the company and trying to like retain and grow and cultivate that talent. And it's like, where are your efforts in order to do that? And you can see with the effort that they're making now, trying to like roll through a bunch of people. It's like you guys only care when your power's threatened. When your power's threatened, you guys don't really care that much when we're all going through this shit. It's the middle of the pandemic. People are getting screamed at, cursed at. I can't tell you how many times I was called out of my name because like people are mad. They want help, and you're not doing anything to actually legitimately address those issues. You're just constantly pushing your profit margins.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So what's do you have high turnover there?
Whew, whew.
Oh
Man,
no.
do we have high turnover? It's right. Like I guess like I could put it like this, right? Kind of like putting it into that like human aspect, right? And what scares people away, what causes that turnover so much. Like you just look at the environment you're in, not even necessarily like compensation, right? Like put that to the side. You know, um, like I've been thinking a lot like throughout this whole situation about this one kid that used to work in the plumbing department when I was a supervisor there. His name was Aaron. Right, and our plumbing department's pretty rough. It's very notorious. It's also the highest volume plumbing department in the company. And it's a lot of people that like expect you to know stuff, right? So I have this kid. He's like, I want to say like maybe 18 or 19, fresh out of high school. Um, so he's in the department and he's struggling. Right, you're overwhelmed. There's like carts of like full of returns you have to put away. And in a place like plumbing, it's like a lot of like small pieces, like little valves, little connecting pieces, and you've got about 12 aisles to cover. So it's like you have to figure out how to put that stuff away. People are coming up to you, showing you pictures. Hey, I need this fixed. I need that fixed. How do I do that? You're having to walk people all throughout the department to put the entire project together for them. And it's like, I'm supposed to expect this kid to come in here and to kind of pick that up and learn all of these things on the go, right? Because then as a supervisor, what I want to do is I want to stay hip to hip with them and be like, all right, well, let me show you some stuff. Let me show you the ropes. But anytime I'm trying to train them, I'm getting pulled to go deal with, this issue in this part of the store, or that issue in that part of the store. You're running around trying to deal with all this stuff. Oh, you're the only forklift operator on shift. Like, you got to go, drop these pallets, whatever it might be. And so constantly you're leaving this person behind by themselves, like in the department, and now people are getting mad at them. They don't know stuff. They're like, what the hell are you working in this department for if you don't know anything? Things are getting like really rough. And so then you take that and then you put it with what I think at the time he was working there, you're getting paid like maybe like $13.50 starting rate. This is like in the middle of the pandemic too. Like, of course people are going to want to quit. Of course people aren't going to want to stay there. Like, that shit is like literally chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're not only not being trained, but they're also not being compensated for it. And I mean,
No,
on top of that, that also sounds extremely dangerous to be putting people in
yeah,
departments when they don't even know what the hell they're doing.
yeah. And that's the thing is it's right. Like what Home Depot would argue is, they do computer training, right? And there's like a lot of times I like to think about it like there's the world we wish it would be, and then the reality as it is. And to sit somebody on a computer for a couple days, most people aren't going to pay attention. That's the reality of the situation. And I know some people would get mad and be like, "Oh, well, that's what the point of the training is. They're supposed to take it seriously, right?" But it's like you have to kind of like hit that cross between like, well, what are you offering the person that would make them want to care that much? And then like, what is the system you have in place in order to get them the knowledge that they need? And again, is it's like right on both of those metrics, it's like they fail miserably, and right, it's not that I want to necessarily even put that like on like people within the store, whether it's, like the HR people that are supposed to train them, the managers that are there as well, because it's so many problems within the building and people are just so overwhelmed that it's hard to give like problems the attention and the care that they need. And so then everybody's just kind of running around all crazy, and it's like you're trying to figure out all these things on the fly, and it's like again is it's just not ineffective, and where you know personally like I was concerned in trying to talk to people at various levels of management within the company was like, yo, like there are these very real issues, and it just feels like there is not a legitimate attempt to try and fix these things. And then like I don't know, like I talk to people like they have like what's called like an associate relations department. I talk to district HR, to the regional vice president, and like I don't know, like I wasn't inspired with confidence. Like, oh, like you guys really seem to take this stuff like super seriously, right? And they're good with talking, they're good with words, and make nice conversation, and try and get to know you a little bit to make you feel a little bit more special. And like that's all nice, but it's like look, like we're talking about these things because like at the end of the day when you leave here, like these problems are still here. Like we still have to come back every day. And like I don't know, like it's crazy. Like just looking at people in that building, right? And everybody would come in and it was like their souls were sucked out of them. Like you just walked in and that place is like it kills you. And you just absolutely dread being there, and it was just everybody would be so miserable at each other's throats and stuff. And it's like to even just see the difference now, like, dude, it's been a week since like I filed the petition, and just that and just the response that we've gotten to see like the change in attitude with people, like talking to them, kind of seeing a little bit of hope come back into their eyes. It's like, yo, like that's what we were trying to do. Like that's what I'm looking for in those conversations is give us something like that. And it just felt like they had nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you went you even like you. It sounds to me like you tried to go through all the proper channels. Like you're
Yeah.
talking to the district manager, you're talking to HR, and nobody's listening. And I mean, it only makes sense that you would go the route of okay, well, you're not going to listen to us, then we're gonna unionize. I mean, does
Yeah.
and it sounds like I mean, is that essentially what happened?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much like, I kind of, it's kind of crazy too. Cause like I talk with a buddy of mine and like he always says like, right, like it was years in the making. and I guess I could kind of see what he was saying, right? Because it's not that we ever like explicitly talked about it, but it was just that the problems existed in a manner that like this was kind of like the inevitable end. Um, but yeah, I would say like I don't know, man. Like I just remember like looking into different stuff with like the store. Like they had showed me how to read like the profit and loss report and stuff like that. Because like my personal path there was, about a little bit over a year ago. Like I turned down a promotion. I was kind of like on track for more of that corporate route. Um, and they had like taught me a lot of stuff. They gave me a lot of perspective, especially in terms of like the critiques that I have. And so I just remember like, stepping down, I was like, oh, I kind of want to get out of here and just like reading through like a bunch of information. And just like learning a lot about like that store in particular, the company, the direction that they're headed in, stuff like that. And I just remember like being like, oh, like, dude, the way this shit is like, it's crazy, right? Like you just feel like people are being exploited. And I would take like a lot of just national trends, right? I'm also like really into politics and stuff. So kind of just taking more like those national trends and just like that issue of exploitation you would see just of like more like the wealthy ruling class and how they would exploit working class people and kind of seeing that more and more within that building. And then I don't know, like one day I was talking with a coworker and I was like, yo, like, can you believe this stuff? And, I'm like reading stuff from the annual report and showing it to them. And they were like, yo, like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, man, like, that's pretty heavy. Um, and so like I kind of sat there and thought with it. And, I'd been following a lot of like what was going on at like Amazon, Starbucks. Now that I think about it, actually, too, I'm pretty sure I heard about what happened with you guys over at No Evil. Um, but just like kind of like looking at that entire like labor movement and I don't know, I felt like look like if there was a time to try and do something like this and to try and do something that I felt was right, like that was now. Like you just look at again, you look at those trends, you look at what's going on. Like Amazon gets this like crazy like upset victory up in New York, and it's just these people that are just caring about each other, and it's like like again, like something I'd said. Remember, I think it was to Jonah Furman, like like if they could do that shit with 8,300 people, like we could totally do that with 300 people. And like again, going through the routes of like talking to people in management and stuff, it's like these people they don't have any answers that we could believe in. Something that again would like not just affect stuff in terms of you know working conditions, staffing, training, pay. Um, but also too like in terms of like creating an environment in which like people just don't have their soul sucked out of them, and so yeah, so I just was like, hey, like when you look at like this process and what it is you're trying to do when you're trying to organize and trying to unionize your workplace is making your case to the people, and the one thing that I had on my side and that I can see like throughout the last week is that spending 5.5 years in a place, going through a pandemic with people, and like I'm personally a person like I don't miss work much. So I only missed I think maybe like 2 weeks in both 2020 and 2021 for vacation. So like in there in the trenches with people, seeing them every day, like that kind of builds like a bond where it's like you just trust people that are with you in that. And you see like these people roll through now like from corporate and stuff, and it's like like you guys can say these nice things, you can try and buy us food, you can do all that stuff, but like we just don't trust you. They've had ample opportunity to inspire confidence, and they have the resources to do it, right? Again, that store made 30,170,052 dollars last year in profit. The company made $16.4 billion dollars in profit. They spent, $15 billion dollars in stock buybacks, $7 billion dollars in cash dividends. Like, dude, that's money galore. And I would kind of just like play around with some of the numbers and see like, what if you just invested like these various things? Like, I remember, I said like, what if you took like half of what they spent on the stock buybacks, 7.5 billion, and you just like reinvested that into like money for all 500,000 associates. I can't. What was that? I think it was like $10,000 or something like that. Um, and you're like, yo, like this is stuff that's transformational for people that could make like such a difference, and you guys just don't care to do that at all.
Investing that kind of money into your team, whether it be pay raises or health benefits, like it would have helped that poor kid that was trying to navigate plumbing. I mean, careers are what's
Mm.
going to motivate people. Sustainability is what motivates people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's right, is it's investing in people. It would be hard sometimes to try and get stuff done within the building, but like I was always a person that would like try and connect with people, right? So like, ask people how their day's going, invest in them, talk to them, see where you can help them out, and like I would always say, like, yo, all those young kids like that, send them my way, because when you build those bonds, right, and you make those investments, you can get a little bit more out of people because now they feel like they're contributing to something, and then when you go into the point you're making, you start to actually invest some money and make somebody feel like, okay, like, I can live comfortably, like I feel like I'm being paid a fair wage for the work that's expected of me. Of course, their productivity is going to go up. But again, as it's right, there has to be that investment. There has to be that care, and you can say that you're trying, but like people can feel that. People can feel that in the building, and that's just this is again like something that we would see, like, like you guys are saying one thing, but you're doing another.
Were there any particular reasons that you wanted to do the more independent, like Home Depot Workers United, as opposed to going with a larger union?
Yeah, I mean, like, right. So the goal, I guess, when you look at it, is we're focused on this building right now, just because you got to take the battle that's in front of you.
Right.
Um, I guess what I would like to see happen is for pockets of Home Depots across the country to do something similar. Mostly because, right, like rather than going to a large union, like, look, like I think Chris Small said this pretty well too. Like, there's been ample opportunity for it to happen for more of the established unions, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't able to happen with them. And so, kind of in that same vein that he followed with Amazon, it was like, well, look, like what we'll do is we'll just take people from the store that associates can trust. Right? It's your coworkers, and it's people that you've been through a lot with. So, you can trust them, right? You know that they're gonna fight for you. You know that they're gonna come up with solutions that are also good to consider, because of the fact that, again, like, we work in the building, like we understand the language, we understand the day-to-day minutia and everything that goes on, and it's just, if the goal is to try and make yourselves a collective unit with the interest of advancing what it is that everybody wants, and trying to create a more equitable work environment, I just felt like the people in the building were qualified enough to do that. I look at just various people within that building and the knowledge that they have. Like, we got like two guys in lumber that have been working there for 20 years. They know a lot about that stuff. I can go ask them questions about that. There'd be people in plumbing, if I was having issues with like plumbing in my department, go talk to them about that. Or just their understanding of the store, like how to get it to function, the customer base coming through. Like, there's so many people there that just like they get it, and it's like sometimes it doesn't need to be this whole like complicated, convoluted process of like people sitting behind computers and running all these calculations and all these formulas. Like, yes, like there's a time and a place for that, right? Like, that's useful information to have, but at the same time, there's just also like this aspect to like an environment and to a team, and just like the chemistry between people, and the experience within an environment where it's like, oh, like, look, who better to speak on what's going on in the hardware department than, somebody who's been working there for 10 or 15 years? Who better to talk to about, like, for instance, my department, receiving. Like, there's a woman back there. She's a freaking wizard. She's an expert at what she does. She knows like everything. Everybody always comes to her for stuff. She used to go to a bunch of different stores in order to train people. Like, why would I not trust her to have valuable input to improve, that part of the workplace, of the work environment? And so it's right, is it's a trust, and it's a belief in the people there, that it's like, like, if we put our minds to it, like, we can make it happen. And there's, I guess, like, some of the biggest benefit that, like, would come with an established union, I guess, in the sense of like what it is that we're trying to do is, clearly like there's access to resources, so you're able to pay for like legal fees and stuff like that. Like that's very important, but it's also to just, like we have a collective vision, like we have an idea of how this stuff can operate, and so you just work with that in mind, and we just felt that again, like we were the best ones to execute that plan.
So how has management responded to the union drive? Um, I'm assuming they're doing captive audience meetings.
Yeah, they just started yesterday with that. So I guess there was like a little right. So it's kind of gone in phases, right? So there was like a little bit of a pre-response, like the weekend before I filed, and I guess I don't know if it was that they had caught wind. Maybe they heard from somebody. Maybe I said something to the wrong person, or there was a conversation that I had with a couple ladies from associate relations, and I kind of just expressed the fact that I was still dissatisfied with the general direction that we were going in, and relatively uninspired. So maybe they were able to pick up off of that. But they sent like two people that weekend. I think one person was from like Atlanta, one person was from like Detroit or something like that. And I know the guy in particular was like running around the store, like basically trying to ask people about unions and stuff like that. Talking to them about like how to get their signatures back.
This was somebody from Home Depot that they sent, or was this
Yeah. They were people. Yeah, they were people from corporate.
Okay.
And like it's a part of the company called Associate Relations. So I think the guy was from Atlanta, and that's corporate HQ. So my read of him was more of an inside guy. But definitely sent there with the intent to kind of see what's going on with that. So they also announced that weekend, like that Friday, I believe it was, that they were swapping out the co-store manager that Sunday, which that doesn't happen often in the store. People do not get moved that quickly. And then they announced, well, not even announced, but basically it came through the grapevine that Sunday was the store manager's last day. So we found out like I found out the night before. So Monday we got, the new manager, and Monday was kind of like when we got like the whole shebang of people rolling through, people from like salaried managers from other stores, more of an influx of people from like corporate and stuff. And they're going around talking to people. So Monday was like that was the day that like I pretty much sent the shot across the bow. So I tried to hand in the petition to the store manager. He wouldn't take it. So, but that day I actually like went and filed, and then that Tuesday was when everything kind of seemed to like amplify a little bit. And they're running around, they're talking to people. Hey, how are you? How you feeling about things? They're kind of like they were trying to basically play the angle of like we have what's called a Voice of the Associate survey, which is like I don't know if it's once or twice a year, but basically we get to kind of like critique, what's going on. They mostly like basically have us comment on like the management staff, and the management like that survey didn't go well. Let's just say like they did not score too well. Yeah, and I like me, right? I'm always cautious with this, right? Because again, like I also know like people in that management team, like I'm cool with them, and I don't want to put too much onus on them because I just again like an analogy I would use, like particularly when I was talking to the associate relations people, is like you can't expect a person to win a game of chess like if you're going to give them half the pieces that they need. And so they kind of tried to like stick it under like that guys. There's also a lot of people calling corporate and stuff like that, and they really kind of just tried to hit it from that angle. And I think while they were doing that, they were trying to basically figure out like who signed the petition, so that they could try and get them to rescind their signatures. And people just weren't like very receptive to them. At least from what I hear, talking to different individuals, I personally didn't have any experience with any of this stuff. Like my experience has been very much different than the rest of my stores. They seem to be really like trying to hit that angle of like, all right, well, we're going to try and dilute, the signature base. And then I don't know, I guess from like last week to this week, it's kind of just been more of like a general acceptance of the fact that like, yo, like this is a thing. this week has been more of them kind of taking it serious and basically like beginning the captive audience meetings. Like now they're kind of like trying to scare people, like, oh, the unions, they're the boogeymen, you know, they're here to take your money and not do jack shit for you, and we're Home Depot, and you know we can do whatever we want, and it's a lot of like that. I actually had to make a TikTok video last night to try and respond to the captive audience meetings, because I do not think that I will be invited to those.
Who's leading the captive audience meetings? Is it managers?
Uh, yeah, so it seems like the way that they've kind of the way that they've kind of structured it is they're kind of somewhat using it as like an introduction to the new store manager, and the co-store manager who's a promoted assistant manager. They're trying to kind of like use that to introduce it, and then they kind of like talk about like the union stuff, and like, oh, you know, basically they're reading from a script, and it's like, oh, you know, they're gonna take your money. You know, they can't really like force Home Depot to do anything. Home Depot is gonna do what it wants, and that you're not gonna have a choice, that they're gonna speak for you, that you're losing your autonomy. You need to be careful what you sign. You need to understand what you sign. Um, and you know, kind of going that route. And then I think, I don't know if in all of them or in some of them at the end, then they kind of like try and open the floor to to like questions and like concerns that people have. I mean, from what I'm hearing from different individuals that I've seen it, like people are just kind of like, yeah, like whatever, like, you know, we know what's going on, like we know why you guys are saying this. Some people, you know, they've been able to effectively frighten a little bit, which is why I'm trying to kind of make the responses that I'm making, so that I can be like, look, like, you know, what I tell people is, you know, let them make their point, whatever they have to say, you know, listen to what I have to say, and then like make the decision that's best for you. Like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to have a conversation. What I personally like in terms of how I try and approach it, and what's kind of fun is, you know, while they try and bring everybody in, you know, groups of like 10 to 15, like I'm just sending out like mass text, and it's like, yo, like it's right, is it's they understand that there's a connection that needs to be made with the people, but it's again is it's just a fundamental misunderstanding. Like, yo, like you guys can't just pick now to give a shit. You know, like this investment needed to be made over time. And so yeah, so they're definitely trying to break people up. They're trying to you know, kind of scare people a little bit. You know, but we're fighting hard on the other side and letting people know, like, hey, you know, there's more nuance to that conversation. I'm trying to think of like how to explain this dynamic, right? Because I know the way that we're going about this is extremely different than what is normal. Yeah, I would say, like, personally, my read on why they don't bring me in there is because of the position that they know that I have, and then they're basically treating it as if though everybody else is free game, and so they're trying to equally make that argument to everyone else, but they don't really know where people stand or don't stand, because again, like, they just don't know the people, you know.
I had mentioned this to you before our call, but Home Depot
Mm-hmm.
has responded to the union drive by hiring a law firm called Ogletree Deakins. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as you may already know, this is a law firm that has a very long history of union busting. And I just kind of, I'm curious what you think this. I'm curious what you think this says about the mentality of Home Depot and the response to your organizing. That they went with this law firm in particular to help them with this. They didn't go out and they didn't go find just some random labor lawyer. They went out and they found a union busting law firm to help them with this. And I don't know. To me, that just sounds like that's a statement in itself. I mean, would you agree with that?
I've been like reflecting on this quote from this movie called A Bug's Life. You guys probably know it.
I love
that movie.
That's a great movie.
And uh, when I hear like what right, so when I hear this stuff, it reminds me of this quote that my friend had sent me from it. I'm sure you guys remember, since you seem very excited about the movie, right? So it's the scene where the grasshoppers are in the bar. And you know, the one grasshopper's like, hey, like, why don't we just like go get food from somewhere else? Like, why do those ants matter? You know, and the main grasshopper's like, you know, it's not about the food, you know, it's about those ants, you know, and if one of them stands up to us, then all of them will have the courage to stand up to us, and they outnumber us 100 to 1, and there goes our way of life. Right? That's what it's about. That's why you go and you spend all of this money on the lawyers, right? Because you think about it like logically, all of the money you're expending in terms of the management staff, corporate management staff, like all of that you're investing into the building, now you're starting to pour money in terms of like they just bought us a new belt, right? Like that spending money on union busting lawyers, like all that money, all those resources like could have just been invested into the store originally, and then like maybe people wouldn't have cared. Right, but that's the thing, and that's something I'm also trying to stress to people is it's not even just about money, right? And like that's also I would say something that you could apply to like the larger picture is it's not just about that, right? That's kind of like very very simple in the grand scheme of things. It's that power structure, right? They want to be able to do whatever the hell they want to do, however the hell they see fit, right? Like they're the big dogs on the block. Like if you look at that sector of retail, in the improvement market, like Home Depot is way bigger than anything else. Like they run the show. Like these guys are trying to pull like a Rockefeller and a Carnegie, where they're like, you know what, we're going to start trying to buy up everybody on the market in terms of like different vendors and stuff like that. And we're going to also try and own our own means of production, and try and own all of that stuff. So yeah, it's like they want to be able to do what they want to do. And if we come in here and we start doing some of this stuff, then they start to lose the opportunity to do that. And why not take advantage of, a political system that's in chaos. It doesn't enforce antitrust laws. It doesn't prevent you from becoming, essentially a monopoly. Like that's what they want to do. Like, I know that from looking at some of the videos they put out there, right? And you kind of read between the lines. They put out these videos called Unscripted, and they kind of talk about what their plans are and stuff. And I remember watching this one video, and it was with the VP of Supply Chain and Merchandising. And they're just kind of like talking about how, hey, yeah, like the supply chain guys, like, yeah, we bought a cargo ship, and trying to control a little bit more means of that. Although apparently they found out the hard way that owning a cargo ship is not the only thing you need to do in order to transport your product. That's at least from some stuff that I've been hearing through the grapevine. I gotta look a little bit more into that. But and the guy from merchandising talking about trying to buy up like they're looking to control a little bit more like the market share and stuff like that. Like, yeah, buddy, you're basically using a bunch of nice words to say, yeah, we're gonna go and we're gonna try and monopolize this market as much as we can, and then it doesn't matter like how you treat people, right? Like that's something else I would tell people, and why I say it's like important to try and do this now, because if they really like are successful in what they're trying to do, it doesn't matter like if Lowe's will pay you more, like whatever your local home improvement store will pay you more. Like I don't know what you guys have where you're from, but we have like Ace Hardware, Harbor Freight, like some of those smaller guys. Like it doesn't matter what they pay their people. Like at the end of the day, if what you need comes from Home Depot, like you're shit out of luck. And that's essentially what they try and do is try and like capture that market share and corner that market. So again, if we start to do all this stuff, then they have to pay attention to what the employees are doing, and they have to give up a little bit of power. And God forbid we would do that. No, instead we're just going to go spend a shit ton of money on a bunch of expensive lawyers because we can't, God forbid, admit that maybe we didn't treat our people the most fairly. And I think what's crazy too, to kind of also try and quantify what I'm saying, even though I know I don't have to, but even in their terms, right? Like a lot of the reason why I got to where I got to too is because like the department I'm in is filled with 20-year veterans. Like they tell me stories of how that place used to be, how different it used to be, how much happier they used to be to work there. So it's not even like, oh, like, you can say, oh, well, things were never good, or, like there was a time where people, wanted to work at the Home Depot. There was a time where they gave their employees stocks and stuff like that. And it's like, nah, instead they just kind of did what all other companies do. And they got really, really greedy. They took advantage of the fact that they could buy out politicians. And, again, they don't want that to stop. Why would you if you're making that much money?
You had mentioned videos that Home Depot is putting out, and there is a video, I had sent it to you earlier, but there's one video in particular that I wanted to get your opinion on, because I feel like this video is probably going to encapsulate a lot of the talking points that Home Depot is going to use in these captive audience meetings. And in
Mm.
particular, I was just curious if you wanted to respond to 3 of the points in this video. Uh, when you vote to unionize, you don't have a direct line of communication. Right now, you have a direct line of communication with management.
Unions have tried to organize a small number of our associates in the past. You should know Home Depot prefers to have open and direct communication with our associates.
Every company loves their open door policy because you can go and you can talk to your manager, right? So one day, a manager asked me to translate. This was a little while back. I was feeling particularly disillusioned with the place, and I was like into the whole quiet quitting thing before it was a thing. And I told them, I said, like, yo, like, am I gonna get paid more for that? And they were like, oh, you know, with the raises that the company gave over the last 2 years, like they're kind of strapped. And that's like one of those, like, you know, like that's something that they like read that's scripted. You know, they have it like memorized. And so it was just one of those, like, again, like you just become like disillusioned. So you like don't even want to deal with it. So I'm like, you know what, man, like, whatever. You guys, I think I had read an article too. It was like, in 2020, the top 5 executives from Home Depot had made a collective $10 million more in pay. So I was also particularly frustrated by that because, again, as always, if that's the case, like you have money to spend there like that, like these people didn't even show up to the store, but I can't get a raise for translating. You know, I'm talking to my management team. I'm using the open door policy. I'm saying, hey, like I'm providing tangible value, you know, that I should be compensated for, and I get told that because of the 2 raises I got, I think it was $1 the first year and 75 cents the next year, you know, that's what, $2,000 the first year, 2,000 and some change, and then I think a little less than 2,000 the second year. Like that direct line of communication, like that's insinuating that if you go and you make an effective argument, there's something you can get out of it.
And how about a union as a third party?
And does not want a third party like a union to stand between us. We don't think a labor union is necessary here.
What is the point you're trying to make when you make that comment, right? You're trying to portray it as if though the people are outsiders. But again, what if I tell you that, you know, I'm the person kicking this off and there are other individuals who you work side by side with who are also part of this, you know, is that really a third party? You know, or is that just, you know, people in your store that you work with that you can trust, you know, operating under a banner outside of Home Depot, right? Because like, I think about it like this. Let's say, for instance, right, instead of trying to push the route that I did and trying to organize and trying to unionize, let's say I go instead the other way and I try and operate as a manager, right? And I remember having associates say like, oh, like we wish you would, you know, try and move up. Maybe you could implement some change, right? If you are to implement that change, you're going to do it under the banner of Home Depot. But then you have to consider what is it that, what's Home Depot's goal? Like, what is their goal as a company? To make as much profits as possible. So if that's the case, then you start to kind of run into a conflict of interest if you want to look out for your people and take care of the workers in the environment, but you also want to make as much profit as possible for the company, right? That becomes an extremely difficult tightrope to walk because you've got these people who aren't in the building, who don't really see the workers, who, you know, say a lot of nice things, but like there's no connection to the people there, you know? So it's like they're over here like numbers. You know, so again, you start to kind of have that conflict where you've got one side that reasonably, you know, expects to be appreciated and compensated in a manner commensurate to the effort and the energy they expend within their work environment. And then you've got the other side. This is basically like, we don't care about anything. Just make fucking money. Like, that's it. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can curse on here.
Absolutely.
Please.
We encourage it.
The more the better.
So, like, you know, they're over here like, dude, like the bottom line. It's like, how do you coincide that as a manager? That's extremely difficult. That was why I was just like, dude, I don't think I can do this. Like, you know, again, like you have to consider it like this. So an associate comes to me, right, in 2021, I'm a manager, and they say, I want a raise, right? And you're over here like, okay, you know, and you go and you want to give the person the raise. But then for whatever reason, I don't know what happens, you know, behind closed doors with that. I don't know the conversations that go on with the higher ups. But essentially, what would always come back to people is some form of it's not in the budget. But then you know that in your budget, you're sitting with an excess $30.1 million. Like, how do you, in good faith, look at that person and tell them, like, we can't do that? That's really hard. Like, that's really hard to do. And again, like, that is the banner that you have to operate under if you try and instill that change as a manager, right? Because you're going into the belly of the beast. Like, my dad would always tell me that. He'd be like, yo, like, why don't you just try and change stuff from the inside? And I'm like, yo, because you're like trying to change like a whole culture. Like, you're trying to change the current of the ocean as like this tiny little fish. Like, that's going to be extremely hard to do. Or, you go instead and you go the other route and you say, well, if that's not the most viable option to actually improve, right? Because let's even say as a manager, you're able to improve, right? You're able to do that. Like, eventually you're going to go somewhere else, right? If I'm an assistant store manager, like, I want to be a store manager, right? I have ambition. I want to try and move on, and the store manager will want to go to district manager, right? Like, everybody, like, that's the one thing that's inevitable, right? Is change. That's the one thing you can count on. So then it's like, how do you go about affecting, meaningful change in a way that will be reflective and representative of the people who end up staying in that building through all the change? And it's by looking again to yourselves to find a way to organize yourselves and to make your voice collectively heard in a way that can tangibly improve your workplace. And so again, like, that's what we're doing. Like, that's what the people there are doing. So I mean, if you want to call that a third party, I mean, I guess. And like, yeah, like, we're not operating under the Home Depot banner. We call ourselves Home Depot Workers United, but ultimately it's still with the goal of improving that work environment. It's just that we have a different theory of change, and that theory of change is a lot more viable than what they would like to give us credit for.
No, and I think that brings up really the heart of this issue too. Like what you just explained about having to look someone in the eye and be like, "Oh, there's nothing in the budget," when you know damn well that there's something in the budget that to give this person like some kind of raise if management wanted to. Like the the goal of employers and upper management is always going to be diametrically opposed to the people working under them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely. And so,
that's
mhm.
just the heart of it. And I mean, I don't know. Personally, that's why I think every single person needs a union in their workplace, no matter what they're doing, just because of that simple fact alone. I just think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Right, in a business, you have labor and you have capital, right? So capital's interest is represented already, right? Because it's just capital's interest is essentially the interest of the company, right? You look through the earnings report, you see like they get a 44% return on invested capital, like, right? Like, a lot of how they make money too is how they play with money, and like those speculative assets, right? And that's, if you start to like get like super into that world, like, and I've tried to like learn more and more about that as I've gone on, right? And that has help me to understand, look, okay, like, that's going to be their goal. Capital's covered. Who looks out for labor, right? Because labor is the other essential component of the business.
Yeah, well, honestly, everything you're saying makes sense, and I want to sign one of these union cards, but they're legal documents, and I'm afraid to give you my signature.
Your signature on an authorization card or petition is actually a legal document that can be used to bring in a union.
It's hard to think that one little signature can be so important, but in today's world, your signature means a lot. To be honest, I don't like handing my signature over to anyone. My signature's too valuable for that, and so is yours.
I take that personally because, like, I took a lot of care to do the research that I did, to understand what unions are about, to understand what collective bargaining is about. I've like, stressed about like the idea of like going to the negotiating table, right? Like, because I care a lot about this. I've put a lot of effort into it, as well as the people that I've worked with, right? And the people that are also working with me on this. And it's like, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of care, there's a lot of desire to try and improve that place, not even just for oneself, but for, again, the collective. Like, so to sit here and to try and make it seem as if, oh, like, you're signing your life, like, why? Like, you think, first of all, it's not that deep. Like, relax, you're not sitting here signing your soul away to the devil, giving away the life of your firstborn. Like, relax, and it's not that deep. But even apart from that, like, you don't think that we care enough to do the work that we need to do on our end to make sure that we're bringing the best argument possible to people to try and improve their lives. But again, like, they wouldn't. I don't think that they would understand that because they don't care about the people in that building to the extent that we do.
What advice would you give to other workers out there, whether it be at Home Depot or somewhere else, who might be thinking about organizing or in the process of organizing?
If I could, I guess, kind of put myself back in the shoes of a person who is apprehensive towards doing this, like, I would say, like, anybody that's hearing this that's on the fence but that has that desire, like, believe in yourself and believe in your coworkers. Do your research. Put in the work. And know what it is you're fighting for. Make sure that you keep your heart in the right place. Like, and if you do that, like, I know it's a little bit cheesy, but like, like, I'm telling you, man, like, it'll pay dividends for you. If you fight for what you believe and fight for what you think is right, like, that's what's led us to this point. And that's what allows us to continue to move forward with the momentum that we have, is because at the end of the day, in our bones, like, we feel that this is right. We feel that this is right by the people, and so we're willing to put in the work that's necessary in order to try and get us to where we're trying to go, right? Because again, it's about the people there. It's about the people in your work environment. It's about the people that you struggle with, the people that help to leave like a mark on you. So just believe in yourself, believe in your coworkers. Put in the work, and I try my best to respond to anybody. So if you want, find me on Twitter. I think so far I'm batting 1,000. I don't think I've got any messages lately, but I'll help out however I can.
Yeah, so I was gonna actually ask you that. Where can people find you? Where can they keep up with the campaign? On Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, any of that stuff. If you want to give your handles.
Yes. Yeah. So for right now, like, I'm going to be meeting with some people to kind of like plan some of this stuff out. Probably create like a Twitter page, a TikTok page. But in the meantime, I'm using like my personal Twitter and TikTok in order to kind of like put stuff out. Whether it's just like saying what's going on in the store, if people are doing reporting on stuff. So it's at VEE_DEL_SOL. Be del Sol. Yeah, and I'm trying my best to stay active on those, because I haven't always been like the most avid social media user, but people are interested. I also think too, like I said to people, like, it's a great way, like, if you have questions, if you're listening to this and you work at another Home Depot and like you're like, damn, like, I want to talk to this dude, like, yo, talk to this dude. Like, I'm trying my best to answer everyone, because the other thing too is it's like, we want this at other Home Depot, so please just reach out.
Yeah, and if there is somebody out there who is at another Home Depot, they can also message the podcast, and we'll put you two in touch.
Yeah, connect us. Yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, this is again, right? If it's about a larger labor movement, right? Like, we're just trying to shore up the Home Depot side.
For the record, though, I don't think what you said before at all was cheesy. That's the whole point of what we're trying to do here, too, is to talk to people like you who want to put in that work, who want to put in that effort to make their lives, as well as the coworkers around them doing the same work as them, to give them better opportunities and a better work environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And with that being said, we want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with us. We'll definitely be following up with you. We want to hear about all the updates and when you eventually win this election.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
100%.
Thank you guys for the work you do too. I mean, that's awesome what you guys are doing, and I think to have had things go left from no evil, but to be inspired to do what you guys are doing now, it's awesome, and it's important work. So I'm happy to have been invited on and to be able to talk to you guys.
Well, that means a
You're
lot.
too sweet. I can't wait to follow up. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, for sure.